Hello. What I'm showing you here is a picture of the Great Pyramids. And in a previous video, I had thought that I would use the pyramids as a mold to make a light-and-air vehicle that could have been used like Noah's Ark by the ancients to escape the Great Flood, because they suspect that's how old that the pyramids might be. There's also a lot of information at the present time in which it suggested that the pyramids could have been used as a means of making electricity. And there's another one where they say that underneath the Great Pyramid there is a lake of clear water. Now, I put the two thoughts together and I thought, well, what we're looking at here is a means of making hydrogen. And so I decided that I would make a balloon. I would put a coating on top of the pyramid and fill it full of hydrogen. Now the thing is that you have the problem with expansion, as in you have to make room for the gas to expand to give you a lift when you get up into rarer atmospheres. And looking at the picture, there are three big pyramids and several small ones, which I don't know, maybe they were used as a means of lifting the great stone blocks that the pyramid's made out of. On the other hand, they could be used for habitable areas inside of your huge, big complex of pyramids that you're making. I wouldn't have a clue about that. But anyway, what happens is that I decided that I would make a balloon, and I would do the inner coat I would make out of textile. I'm going to say nylon, because that's the modern cloth available. They might have used camel skins. But anyway, what I decided was that I would make the inner layer with a hole in the center at the top, so that when the gas came out through these little channels that they know exist in the pyramid, then it would fill up the gas, the hydrogen would come up, and it would fill the metal case, the top case. And what would happen as it lifted up, then the other part that made out of nylon would hang down below and vent out into the second pyramid, which you would have done a similar thing with, and the third pyramid, which you would do the same with again. Now, to get your lift initially, then you would use hydrogen in the first one. In the second one, you might use natural gas, which could have been made in a big tank by the Sphinx. And the bottom one you could fill full of hot air. Now the bottom one would probably be what you would use eventually, perhaps, for your habitable area, if you were to actually make it up into space. And if you look at it, you will notice that the second one will fit actually physically completely inside of the top one, and the bottom one will fit physically entirely inside of the second one from the top. And so you have this situation where if you have the three different gases, then the top one would expand and it would completely fill the top balloon full of hydrogen. Now it would continue to expand, and it would expand into the second one. Now the second one would be a heavier gas, which would be cooling down, and that would vent then into possibly the bottom one. Now if you wanted to keep the bottom one full of air, then you wouldn't vent it to the bottom one, you would vent it to space. So you would have this gradually lightening in weight of your balloon. Your skin would remain the same, but your gas would change to be all hydrogen, or even the bottom one would have a skirt hanging on it too, the bottom, and that would expand into that. So you could, if you made the skirt big enough, then you could make it that it would be actually of the same consistency as the air outside of it, so that all you're actually lifting is the actual skin. You're not actually lifting any compressed air or anything like that. All you're lifting is your initial weight off your skin of the balloons. Now, what I decided was that I would have to be able to move the structure, the craft around. And when I was at school, then there was a thing where we used a little windmill with sails with a black side and a white side, and it was in a dome. I don't know if it was a vacuum dome, but you shine a light at it and the windmill would spin. And there was another thing they did with the sail on a boat, and it worked the same. It powered it along. And so what I decided was that where your craft would fit one inside of the other, then what I decided to do was this. I would put on the ground with a hinge on it an area that was square that was the same size as the bottom of the four-sided pyramid. So I would make a lid for the bottom with a hinge attaching it actually to the pyramid. So when the pyramid rose up in the air, now the flap would fall down like this. And so, but if you put a hinge on the flap and made it 2 depths, then you would make a sail that was the whole length, actually more than the length, of the whole structure. Now that sail could be covered in all sorts of stuff. You could have one side of it black and you could have the other side of it white. You could have it filled with solar panels. On the other hand, solar panels could fit anywhere on your pyramid, but if you're going to use them to advantage, probably on the lid. Now, the solar panels would be used to generate electricity. And what I thought was that if I could get up to the to a height, extreme height at the equator, and then using my power that I had there, plus wind currents and stuff like that, then I could transport my vehicle to above one of the poles, or close, the Arctic Circle. And there I could switch on and with the electricity I was generating create a magnetic field. Now the magnetic field, opposite poles repel, and so I would present a north pole to the north pole of the Earth and I would have lift. Now how close I have to be to the pole? Could I do that all the way around? From the pole up to from the equator out up to the pole and maintain the height that I'd gained in the troposphere and transfer it to the stratosphere. And there I would still have the lift from the magnetic force that I had. Now I can present then my flat face, my sail, to the sun at the same time. So that's working out angles, they could do that, or you could perhaps have the sails that instead of being just hanging down, you could find a way of making them actually hang out the side of the vehicle and make them flat to the ground while the vehicle is upright and give you power that way and have your solar panels elsewhere, or you find a way of getting the benefit from both. Now on that, then you have the power, magnetic power pushing you up, and you have solar emissions pushing you up. Now, your vehicle is filled with hydrogen, and the moon attracts the sea, and the sea is 2/3 hydrogen. So if the moon actually attracted the hydrogen part of water, then it could well be that you would gain a little bit of lift if you timed it right, so the moon was coming along behind the Earth, because I'm looking to leave the craft behind. I want the Earth to move away and leave the craft behind. Then you might be able to slow yourself down, or imagine if you could stop yourself. You would have the Earth moving away from you at 10,000 kilometers an hour. Now, to help you to do this, then once you get up to the top of the stratosphere, then you're in an area where what we see is the northern lights. And so if this is solar emissions, the northern lights, and they're channeled because of the Earth's shape, and they come round and they come out up over the top, and they hit the Earth's magnetic field, and they do a pattern that sometimes looks very like stress. It's sort of like pages of a book, and you can see now that this could be just photography, because I've never actually seen this in the northern lights. All I've seen is a glow in the distance. And so if this is the case, that they actually hit the field with any sort of force at all, then you could be that you're pushing yourself away from the Earth. Now, if all these three things work together and you could stay where you are, then the Earth would disappear into the distance and you would be left stationary. Now, the beauty of a stationary craft is that if you actually jettisoned anything on your way up, maybe you had to lose one of the panels or equipment of some sort, it wouldn't really matter, because it wouldn't go into orbit. It would only fall down back to the ground again. But if you were able to stay where you were anyway, and the Earth disappeared into the distance, then you would be able to calculate how far behind you would need to be to actually fall back to the Earth at the speed you wanted to go. And so you could eventually, when you decided you wanted to do it, you could switch off your magnetic field. You could turn your face away from the sun, and the moon would be disappearing anyway, wouldn't it? And so you would be left with no forces. The only force that you would have would be the Earth's gravity. And that would work because, I mean, you feel it out past the moon and it pulls a spacecraft back to the Earth. So if you were to do this and you switch everything off, then you would have the gravity pulling you back towards the Earth, and you judge your speed right, your distance right, then your speed would be such that you could put yourself in orbit doing a speed that would match the speed required. So you could actually attain a geophysical stationary orbit that might be thousands of miles above the Earth. Now, what an advantage that would be. You might even be able to put it on the moon. Now, if the bottom of your craft was filled with air, then I don't know, would you need a compressor? Would that be your payload? Would it be a compressor plus the air? Because if the air would be, you put a big enough container that it expanded and expanded, so that all you're carrying is the weight of the container, then you haven't got any compressed air or anything like that. So can you shield it, and will the actual coldness of space cause the air to liquefy, or just change back to air that you can put it in a container that does 14 pounds of a square inch, where we could live in it without any problem whatever? Anyway, that's my story for today. I'm hoping that I might be able to get around to something serious, because this is sort of a joke, you know, but it sounds practical to me, because, I mean, the main thing with powered craft is you have to carry not only your equipment, you've got to carry your air and the weight of the containers to carry it and all sorts of stuff, whereas the air, in my case, could be an advantage. Anyway, that's it for now. My time's up. I only get 15 minutes, and bye. See you again. Don't forget to subscribe so you catch the next of my little shows, eh?